Welcome to Accotink Unitarian Universalist Church live stream worship service. Today we have a special service presented by TAC, our LGBTQ plus social justice group. I am Nancy Melito and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Today we're also recognizing the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Accotink UU Church is a welcoming and inclusive community that seeks to create a more just and compassionate world through our actions to bring about justice and by honoring the web of nature of which we are a part. All are welcome here. No matter whom you love, no matter your identity or heritage, no matter your beliefs or background, no matter your means or gifts, you are welcome here in this religious community. If you are new to Accotink and would like to talk more about this church, please be sure to reach out to me, our minister, Reverend Pippin, or a member of the board. Contact information is posted on our website at www.accotinkuu.org. On our website, you can check the online order of service on the worship section of our webpage. While you are there, be sure to check our events page for upcoming virtual gatherings and other news. I invite you now to close your other windows or apps and devices, take a deep breath, and center yourself for worship.
We light this flame to ignite our hearts and minds, the spark of knowledge that enlightens, the shimmering hope that burns, the blazing love that engulfs our actions, the bonfire of our commitment. We light this flame for those who celebrate themselves, who fear, who hope, who preserve, who stand on the side of love for all. We light this flame for those who have been ridiculed, that they may find peace, for those who have fought to marry, that they may celebrate, for those who live in uncertainty in the world, that they may have hope. We light this flame to renew our commitment that no one shall ever again suffer for the right to love. We light this flame to celebrate our kaleidoscopes of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. For this, we light this flame.
So we have a virtual Wonder Box this week for our Time for All Ages. Can you guess what's inside? It's a rainbow pride flag. The first rainbow pride flag was created by an artist and gay rights activist named Gilbert Baker. Activist and politician Harvey Milk urged him to create it to replace the pink triangle imagery that was being used at the time because the pink triangles had been used by Nazis during World War II. Gilbert Baker chose the rainbow as a symbol because it represented the diversity of the LGBTQ plus community, because it came from nature, and because it was a familiar symbol for many. In his memoir, he tells us that it's in the Bible. It's the symbol of hope and healing that appears after the Great Flood. He explains that it is also a symbol in many cultures around the world, found in Chinese, Egyptian, and First Nation histories, to name a few. He created the rainbow pride flag in 1978 with 8 colors. However, it soon became difficult to find pink fabric, and parade organizers in San Francisco apparently wanted an even number of stripes. And so this is the modern day pride flag that you might be familiar with. It is used by individuals to show their pride and used by businesses, organizations, and churches like ours to show they are welcoming places. But did you know each stripe on the flag was given its own meaning? Red represents life. Orange is for healing, which coincidentally is our theme for worship this month. Yellow is for sunlight. Green is for nature. Blue is for serenity and harmony. And purple is for spirit. There are other versions of the rainbow pride flag, such as this one created in Philadelphia to make sure that the Black and brown members of their community felt welcome and included. And there are many other flags used by the LGBTQIA+ community. The stripes and symbols on these flags each have their own meanings as well. Maybe there's a flag here that represents you. Or maybe this is your flag. This ally flag, which also features a rainbow, represents anyone who may not identify as LGBTQ+, but still wants to show they support the community and advocates for equality. So the next time you see a rainbow flag, remember that it represents diversity, life, healing, spirit, nature, harmony, history, inclusion, and more. But most of all, it represents pride.
Hi, my name's Vanessa. I'm doing a reading. Soul, I hear you calling. Oh, baby, please give a little respect to me. And if I should falter, would you open your arms out to me? We can make love, not war, and live at peace with our hearts. I'm so in love with you. I'll be forever blue. What religion or reason could drive a man to forsake his lover? Don't you tell me no. Don't you tell me no. Soul, I hear you calling. Oh, baby, please give a little respect to me. These lyrics are from a song called A Little Respect from 1989 by Erasure. It's from a time only 32 years ago when people were forced to hide who they were. It was written in response to the British government's horrific Section 28 Act, which criminalized the promotion of homosexuality, resulting in the closing of lesbian, gay, and bisexual support groups across British schools and colleges. The song's refrain questions, what religion or reason could drive a man to forsake his lover? May all people continue to heal after being forced to keep a part of themselves hidden. May our LGBTQ+ family and friends never be forced to forsake their lovers or themselves again. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ed Edringer, and I'm pleased to say that 2020 was a great legislative year for the expansion of LGBTQ+ protections in Virginia. And I'm further pleased to say that members of Accotink's advocacy group, which includes True Accotink Colors, played a part in making this happen by lobbying our state legislators. One of the most sweeping changes was the passage of the Virginia Values Act, which protects LGBTQ+ people from discrimination in their daily lives, including in housing and access to credit, and creates protections for all Virginians in employment and public accommodation. Virginia is now the first state in the South to protect LGBTQ+ people from discrimination in their daily lives. Although it was a sweeping bill, that wasn't all. Another bill added non-discrimination protections for sexual orientation and gender identity into 70 different places in Virginia's code, covering such things as public contracts, auto insurance, and apprenticeship programs, and much more. Another bill allows cities and counties to pass their own non-discrimination ordinances, which may not sound like much until you realize this was previously not possible under Virginia law. A city could not set higher protection standards than that which the state had. Laws were also passed that protect LGBTQ+ youth by requiring public schools to provide an equal learning environment to transgender and non-binary students, and another that bans the practice of conversion therapy on minors. It is also now easier for trans Virginians to obtain a birth certificate that matches their identity and allows them to select for themselves male, female, or non-binary on their state license or ID without needing special proof or changing their birth certificate. Another piece of legislation protects transgender and non-binary people from discrimination in state-regulated health insurance plans. They now get the same coverage as a cisgender person. And finally, something that shouldn't have been necessary at all, but could become important given the recent changes in the Supreme Court. The ban on same-sex marriages and unions in Virginia's legal code was repealed. Now that's a lot of very good forward progress in 2020. And as Unitarians, we should be very happy, but we can't stop there. Some issues our partner Equality Virginia has on their scope for 2021 are: one, removing the LGBTQ plus panic defense. So a person can't claim they were threatened by another person's sexual identity to excuse having assaulted them. Two, adding LGBTQ elders to the Older Americans Act so they get access to assistance to enable them to age at home. Three, introducing a foster care Bill of Rights for LGBTQ plus youth. And four, passing a constitutional amendment removing the ban on same-sex marriages and unions in Virginia's Constitution. Yes, it is out of the legal code, but it is still in the Constitution. Bottom line, there is a lot to do this coming year, and not only with LGBTQ plus rights, but also such issues as paid sick leave, criminal justice reform, and immigration reform. All are consistent with our UU values. If you want to be part of that advocacy effort, please contact me or Kate. We would love to have your help. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lizzie Breckenridge, and I'm a member of our senior youth group, and finally a senior in high school. For those who don't already know, I like girls, and some of the terms I use to describe myself are gay and queer. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I realized I wasn't straight, and I came out about the same time, the summer before 8th grade. Luckily, in the world that I live in, I don't really feel like it's a big deal, and truth be told, I don't really know what to talk about. Coming out was really hard, not because the people in my life weren't accepting, but because I was not accepting of myself. Shortly after I came out to my friends, my parents found out too. They were supportive but concerned, knowing that their teenage daughter is going to have difficulties based on her orientation. It took me longer to be accepting of myself, but since I've been able to, it feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. In the past 2 years, I've really accepted myself and let myself embrace who I am. Going to a public high school, I'm fortunate enough that I've never been bullied for my sexual orientation. I've never had to deal with the outing and harassment that can come from it, and I'm grateful for that. I would say the reason why I haven't is because I've been out for so long that most of the friends I've made and had have been supportive. But I live my life in a way that if you know, you know. My friends know my sexual orientation, but I'm not shouting it from the rooftops because I worry about the repercussions. Like most people, I have to be sure who I'm talking to and what I'm talking about. But being a member of the LGBTQ plus community, there's an extra layer to that. Who am I talking about, my celebrity crush or my girlfriend who may tell it to their significant other or to their best friends who's friends of a friend of a homophobe? And I babysit for many families in the community. I've never told any of those families about my sexual orientation. I've been asked by the kids I babysit, "Do you have a boyfriend?" And I usually respond jokingly with, "Do you have a boyfriend?" And you forget what they ask when we move on. It's not that I'm afraid what the kids will say. It's a worry of what the kids will tell their parents who have decorated their homes with crosses all over the walls and portraits of Jesus, that I won't get called again to babysit. And is it really worth the effort to have that conversation with the kids and eventually the parents and then not got called again to work? The underlying fear is constantly in the back of my brain. Just in the past year, I was heading out the door to go to my friend's house when my mom called down the hallway for me to change. My first response is, "Mom, I'm wearing sweatpants, calm down." But she motions at my t-shirt, a freebie I got from one of my mom's coworkers from an equality event that says LGBTQ plus equality on the sleeve. I run upstairs to change, knowing I've already gotten in a heated argument with my friend's father about climate change, and knowing she has to stick up for me when her parents talk bad about me in a bad light because I'm attracted to girls. It's not really a panic of fear for my safety, but really a worry, is it worth it? Is it really worth the looks and stares and the possible repercussions that my friend could face because it's something that I can't change? Another moment of panic is when I have to film something for my class. Because school's online, some of my teachers assign work for us in which we have the option to film videos and presentations or turn our cameras on during class. Something I never would have had the thought about, but now I worry if my classmates can see the pride flag in my background. those who know that I'm gay know, and other students probably do too, because my school isn't that big. But it isn't something I'm okay with everyone seeing because I worry for my safety, mental health, reputation. I don't want to be known as that gay kid because that's not my whole personality. Although I'm fortunate enough that I was born at a better time in a better area compared to others, it's something that can't go away. I spent many years, aka like 2 years, because my mom says I'm not old enough and I haven't lived long enough to say many years, trying to hide it and bury my attraction away with no avail. It's something I always have to live with, and I've gotten my fair share of comments and remarks like, oh, you're a lesbian? To, wait, that makes sense now. And in the bigger picture, my future is another area of concern. While applying to colleges, my safety is something I always have to be constantly aware of. I get emails from like Liberty University or Loyola University of Maryland, and my first response is, whoa, that school might have some good opportunities. And then I realize they're a religious institution, and I go, that might not be the best fit. And knowing I will most likely have to do this for the rest of my life is hard to think about. While camping in Tennessee this summer, my family and I drove through Southern Virginia and Kentucky. I have never seen so many pride flags, not pride flags, I meant Confederate flags or Trump flags in my life. And I know that as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I'm most likely not going to be welcomed with open arms by people in Alabama or Mississippi. And I know that for the rest of my life, there are places that I have to be more careful about my potential physical violence. It's always something in the back of my brain I have to worry about. But I promise there is some good. With the most recent election, I have some hope. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eric Tannehill, and I use he, him, his pronouns. I don't know if anyone else has noticed, and this might just be me, but the last couple weeks, months, 4 years have been just a little bit stressful. I know not much has happened, and it's probably just me, but I think some people might relate when I say, ah! Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, hi, I'm gay and I'm trans, and having my rights constantly debated and taken away for almost half a decade has been hard. It feels as though I constantly need to justify my existence to prove my humanity. It's stressful, constantly feeling like I have to be this ambassador for all trans people, taking each insensitive question and remark with grace and patience. I mean, I don't begrudge this. It's not intuitive, and sometimes people just need an explanation, and that's okay. I just kind of wanted to thank this church for never making me feel like I needed to explain myself. My worth as a human being and whether or not I should be treated with kindness just because of my gender identity were never up for debate, which is unique which makes it sad that it's unique. But the fact that here I don't need to explain in simplistic words, just because I'm trans doesn't mean I'm not a human being. So yeah, thank you for creating a community built upon respecting people for who they are and not having our differences define or divide us. Apparently, my mom tells me I'm a role model for trans kids younger than me. First and foremost, I must say that is a terrible idea. I don't trust myself to walk down a flight of stairs while holding a caramel frappuccino. That may sound paranoid, but the last time I did that, I dislocated my shoulder. True story. However, no matter how much of a hot mess I am, I respect the fact that I am somewhat of a mentor to queer people younger than me. I do my best to just offer support and empathy more than anything else. But I decided to write a letter to my past self, which I hope will be applicable to any trans kids listening to this. A letter to my past self. Hey, Ellie. I know the last couple of years have been hard and painful. Trust me, I remember how much it hurt to constantly be bullied and ridiculed. And I'm really sorry, but you're going to struggle with that sadness inside you for a long time. Eventually, after a lot of time, thinking, and tears, you're going to figure out who you are. It's going to be scary and hard to come to terms with the fact that you were born in the wrong body. You'll lose some people and be rejected by others, and it'll hurt. But you'll find most people kind and accepting. You'll question your identity and worth, that being yourself disturbs those around you too much. But I promise, every testosterone patch, every blood test, every doctor's appointment, and the surgery are all worth it. I'm not going to make it sound easy. It wasn't. I hurt you, and I'm sorry. You didn't deserve it. I know when you tried to imagine what you would look like in the future, you imagined a pretty teen girl with blonde hair. Let's just say that didn't quite happen. I'm going to leave you with a quote from a TV show you haven't watched yet, but you really should. You should be very proud of yourself. I know things aren't exactly where you want to be right now, but I promise you they will improve. Every time someone steps up and says who they are, the world becomes a better, more interesting place. So thank you. Love, Eric.
We should indeed keep calm in the face of difference and live our lives in a state of inclusion and wonder at the diversity of humanity. George Takei, who played Sulu on Star Trek.
Hello, my name is Janice Tannehill. My children and I have been coming to AUUC for about 4 years now. We came for the OWL program, stayed for Sacred Wheel. So what is in a name? When I was a kid, I went to the movies with my cousin Billy. Now, Billy must have drawn the short straw because he had to take me to see a re-release of Herbie the Love Bug from the 60s. I must have been about 5 at the time, so Herbie would have been appropriate. My cousin, who was 16, 17, not so much. Afterwards, our parents are still in their movie, so what do? We sneak in the back door, of course, just in time to watch Luke Skywalker get his hand chopped off. Yes, the 5-year-old just wandered into Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. Luke, I am your father. No! It was without a doubt the coolest thing I had ever seen. My cousin, however, freaked out. Well, let me circle back to Billy in a second. So, how do you deal with transgender people? Chances are you've probably already met somebody who is transgender and never knew. If you find out somebody you know is transgender, it doesn't matter what their old name used to be. It doesn't matter what surgeries they've had. It doesn't matter what bathroom they're using. They are who you have always known them to be and go by the name you have always had for them. The closer to the situation you are, however, the more difficult it can be. When you find out somebody you know in passing or as part of your kid's school or team or your community, say, is transgender, the best thing you can do is engage your mental eraser and erase the gender marker, M or F, and the name that you have in your brain and replace it with what they tell you is correct. It's okay to make mistakes. After all, you were introduced with one name, and now they've asked you to use another. Apologize and move on. Empathy and understanding concerning them and their family who are transitioning together is well placed. When someone you are close to or someone in your family comes out as transgender, it can be rough. You may have known this person possibly your whole life or their whole lives as someone else. You need to be an ally. You need to accept them for who they tell you they are. Screwing up is going to happen more often. You are trying to undo years of practice with their old name and pronouns, and that's okay. As long as they know you are trying, as long as they know you want to make the change to call them the correct name, it'll be okay. Now, as a parent of a transgender teen, I can tell you this is where parenting rubber meets the road. Any parent's top priority is keep your kid alive. So accept them, affirm them, and buy a t-shirt because you're gonna need it. You will have to fight for them. You will have to fight the government, the the schools, the doctor's office, the insurance claims, the passport office. You'll have to fight with your family. You will lose friends. You will drive near and far, mostly far, to find appropriate psychological and medical care. You will spend more time than is comfortable filling out forms, sitting in the Social Security office, sitting in the DMV, calling the school again. Virtual learning remains an issue when the wrong yet legal name is staring students in the face every day. All because of a name. But your kid needs this name in order to survive, so you'll do it. Using a transgender youth's chosen name at work, at school, with friends, and at home reduces depression symptoms by 71%, reduces the thoughts of suicide by 34%, and reduces suicide attempts by 65%. Keep your kid alive. It's not that hard. Now, for me and my journey, I hate the term dead name that some transgender persons use for their old pre-transition name. The person I gave that name to isn't dead. And the name I gave them was well thought out and given as a gift with intention and purpose. The name is a strong name, a beautiful name. It just doesn't fit my strong, beautiful child anymore. It's taken me 3 years to be able to say that. This is the acceptance journey I have had to take and the things that I have done to work things out for myself. So here's my pro tip for all you parents and family members who find themselves in the position of having a transgender person in their lives. Try using a nickname for as many months as it takes to get it right. By giving yourself a little bit of space and time away from their old name, and as you watch them become this new person they were meant to be, their new name will fit. Of course, my cousin Billy grew up. He's now in his 60s. He introduces himself to people as Bill, never William. But to his family, he'll always be Billy. Did it bother him sometimes? Probably. Did we do it anyway? Yes, of course. But the point is, when he hears Billy, it might not fit him anymore, but it brings him back to a time when he was young, sneaking around in the back of movie theaters with his bratty little cousin. And herein lies the difference. A transgender person's chosen name is not a nickname. Are you deliberately using someone's old name, a name they have told you is dead to them, because you want to bother them, to out them in public, or that you refuse to believe they are who they tell you they are? You are only reminding them of a name that no longer fits. Thank you for your time.
On June 26th of 2013, the Supreme Court faced a decision on whether or not to nullify the California Marriage Protection Act, better known as Prop 8. This California constitutional amendment came into being in 2008 and denied gay and lesbian couples the right to be legally married. On that same day of June 26th, the Gay Men's Chorus of Washington, D.C. was singing on the steps of the Supreme Court, and I with them. We sang songs of support and strength, as well as the national anthem, awaiting a decision from the judges. From what seemed like hours under the hot sun, the court's decision to not uphold the proposition was greeted with passionate cheers and celebration. After we dispersed, I made my way back to the metro and headed back to Virginia. I took a moment to breathe and reflect on what just happened. I was exhausted and exhilarated at the same time. What an opportunity it was to be a part of that historic occasion. As we came above ground in Virginia, I received an incoming call from my mother. Now you have to understand, at this time, I was not out to my family. So we had a conversation, and I told her what was going on and how I was out there in the Supreme Court on the steps with my friends. And eventually she just blurted out the question, "I have to ask you, are you gay?" And then I said back without missing a beat, "Yes, Mom, I am." She kind of responded, I figured. We continued the conversation on the metro, and eventually ended it on a high note of, your father and I will always love you, no matter who you are. I had been so afraid to come out to my folks because of the possible repercussions, but really, I had very little to worry about. Before long, my parents were making regular voyages up to DC to see me perform in many concerts with the chorus. I felt privileged and relieved to finally be able to open up to them about this part of my life, to sing out loud and who I am, and do it with a flair alongside my chorus family is a joy that's just too good to keep to myself. Unfortunately, not everybody gets the same opportunity of coming out to their folks so smoothly. LGBTQ folks all over the country, from youth to adults, have a very difficult time coming out. Many kids are in a situation where they're afraid they'll be kicked out of their homes with no place to go. Closeted adults often find themselves in traditional straight marriages with children and are afraid of losing their families. Though we have made leaps and bounds in social progress, I still sing for these people. Though my director of the Gay Men's Chorus, the incomparable Dr. Thea Kano, always reminds us to sing to somebody. I sing so that whenever I go to outreach events and concerts, someone out there in the audience will hear me and my story of hope. I will be singing for the same reason this morning. Maybe someone in Accotink needs to hear this message. I hope they hear that we are making steps in the correct direction and that there is indeed a light at the end of the tunnel.
People who love each other and want to live together should be able to enjoy the blessings and the strife in marriage relationships. The late Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
My name is Dick Foster, and my pronouns are he, his, and stud muffin. It's been an amazing ride. I came to Northern Virginia in the late 50s after going through college, the Army, graduate school, and a couple or three jobs. This was a period that was still in the shadow of Senator McCarthy's and his committee searching for commies and queers in the State Department and any place else they might have found them in the federal government. Soon after I came here, I joined what is now the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fairfax. Became quite active in that church, not long until I was a board member and then president of the congregation. But I was not out there. One Sunday, however, the Reverend David Weisbard preached a sermon on the plight of gays in our society. This was not a common topic then because we were largely concerned about racial relations. That was our social justice emphasis because the Fairfax County school system had only desegregated. It was a several-year step in the 1960s. So we lived initially with black and white schools. Anyhow, so at the end of the service, Reverend Weisbard walked to the back of the sanctuary to greet people as they were leaving. And I grasped his hand and said to him, "Thank you." And he said, "Oh, you're very, oh." And then he smiled and said, "You're welcome." Yeah, it was a marvelous reaction and one that meant a lot to me. At work, I had to keep my head down and not be who I really was. And this was emphasized once to me when we had a candidate for director of development and public relations, and he was ready to slide into the job until we got a call from the administrator of a neighboring hospital, who alerted us that the candidate was a queer. End of candidate. But times have certainly evolved, as Ed Krieger pointed out in outlining the legislation that came through the General Assembly this past year. And I have become quite comfortable with whom I am. It's been a joyful ride.
Thank you, Stud Muffin. And now I invite you to join in our community blessing with the words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity.
Let this light remind us of the sacred flame of life that blazes within, constant yet ever changing, burning yet never consumed. O inner light of soul and spirit, lead our minds to greater understanding. Lead our minds to love more fully. Lead our hands to create justice.
Though we will extinguish our chalice flame, we carry within us what we kindled, the light of inspiration, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May we bring these gifts into our lives and share them radiantly out in the world.